The COVID-19 pandemic seems to have put paid to the initial public enthusiasm over Nigeria's rather belated but still strategic decision to join the single African market on the platform of the African Continental Free Trade Area. But experts and industry eggheads continue to wax lyrical about the endless potential of that economic arrangement to a country like Nigeria with her massive human and material resources, only if she can step up and seize the moment. Joining us now from the Lagos studio to have a chat on the immense benefit of the single African market to Nigeria is Francis Anatogu, Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on Public Sector Matters and Secretary, National Action Committee on African Continental Free Trade Area. Welcome to the program. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good morning, Francis. Thank you for joining us. You are the Secretary of the National Action Committee on the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement for Nigeria.
Yes, I
Well,
am.
where are we with that? What is the update? Has that process been affected adversely by the preoccupation with COVID-19 and all the associated issues?
Okay, thank you very much. Of course, COVID-19 affected everything. From even at the continental level, the negotiations, the face-to-face negotiations at some point had to be shelved, and I think that was back in March, so which meant that we had to kick off the trade under AfCFTA with just about 88% of rules of origin agreed. But obviously, we had to adapt, and that was part of the process of adapting, is making sure that we stuck to that date. We started with what we had. On our side, at the National Action Committee, we also adapted very, very quickly as well. We were having meetings, physical meetings, but with the COVID-19, we quickly migrated online. As far back as June 2020, we started sensitizing Nigerians, businesses, government, all stakeholders via virtual means, talking about AfCFTA. We also started engaging stakeholders on Nigeria's strategy for AfCFTA, also virtually. So yes, it affected us, but we adapted and we are moving forward.
So can you go through how Nigeria is going to take advantage of this opportunity rather than having it take advantage of us, which I'm sure you recall was an earlier argument advanced against joining the African Continental Free Trade Area, so that Nigeria does not become some kind of a dumping ground. And also in today's news, we were discussing earlier that the Nigerian Ports Authority has placed a 2-week ban on exports. It's just 2 weeks, but it does say a lot about Nigeria's preparedness or lack thereof at the ports. What has been done to look at that so that we can fully maximize the opportunity?
I think it is important to understand what is happening. We are building the Nigeria of the future, the Nigeria of the 21st century. The issue you just talked about, export, tells you the magnitude of the change that needs to happen. And to put it in simple terms, the processes for importation is clearer, is more streamlined than the process of export. Why? Because we mostly export oil. So we are now waking up to export, and you don't have a one to wave and everything will change. So there will be a lot of changes happening. And if you think about it as well, do we really have a choice? Every time oil price dips, we suffer. You and I suffer. The devaluation of our currency that happens affects each and every one of us as individuals, as companies. So it is difficult for you as a company to scale with the kind of sinusoidal movement of our currency. So really, this is about solving a fundamental problem that has plagued us for years and decades. So we really don't have a choice. Now, that said, we are starting from where we are, and a lot has been going on. When you talk about AfCFTA, it is an additional tool in the toolkit of the Nigerian government's plan to grow Nigeria's economy, develop a more resilient economy. There's a lot has been happening in infrastructure space over the past 5 years. A lot has been happening in even in the finance space. 5 years ago, we were talking about single credit at single digits. Now it is a reality. Yes, not everybody has access to it, but we have moved beyond, is it really realistic? So a lot is happening. Now, it was also, if you think about it as well, the Nigerians are not waiting with or without AfCFTA. Our fintech companies are moving to Africa. Our entertainment industry is already in Africa. Our banks are in Africa. So it is for the rest of the Nigerian businesses to catch on what is already happening. And Nigerians are already taking advantage of it. So it is, what we are trying to do now is to mobilize everybody at every level to understand that there is a bigger market out there. So let's gear up to trade in that bigger market. Why? Because the margins will be higher. It will be, if we are able to get all the import requirements or export requirements right, we will have opportunity to sell more. So really, there's a lot to go. There's a lot we stand to get from going to AfCFTA. Now, let me even talk about the states. So we have 36 states, and the narrative is that some of them are not viable. But here you've got an opportunity to improve the viability of not just the states, but really at every local government. And what is the message? The message is that every state needs to find one product or service that it can be the premier exporter to Africa. And I'll give you a good example, rice. About 10 years ago, we were importing billions of dollars worth of rice in Nigeria. Today, that has come down. But step 2, Africa imports $6 billion of rice. So here is an opportunity to displace non-African countries using AfCFTA in rice. This is just an example. Africa imports about $36 billion of petroleum products, diesel, petrol, and all of that. This is an opportunity. This is our lunch that other people are eating. We've got the oil. We produce more oil than Africa needs. So refining, petrochemical, these are areas where we have competitive advantage that we can easily take advantage of. So across sectors. Now, let's look at the automobiles, auto parts. Again, Africa imports over $30 billion. And when I say this, it's per annum of these products. Now, if you look at that auto and auto parts sector, you can see several things. You can see auto sector, but you can also see the entire logistics. What about we leverage our local auto sector to renew the fleet of our transportation vehicles, flying locally, but also along the ECOWAS roads, but even Africa. Now, if you think about the components themselves, we are now doing more and more in mining. And we mine lead and zinc in Nigeria. Now, how about those ores that we mine go into producing batteries? So there's a lot that we can do. We just need to understand the opportunities that exist. And that is what part of the message that we have at the National Action Committee, that there are linkages, there are opportunities that exist under AfCFTA. First is to understand it, and then you can then start thinking of how do I take advantage of it. Now, the last thing that I'll say is that we are now moving into real economy as other people practice it. What do I mean by that? We cannot just, when you trade in oil, you find the oil. In fact, we don't even know where the money comes from. The likes of Shell and Co., they find the money, they drill, and then we take our cut. That's it. But non-oil, you will have to develop the market. You will have to go to the market, create access for your products. You will need to build your brand. You will need to engage with suppliers. We need to find where you have the best suppliers. You need to find the markets that give you the best margins. So everybody from businesses, our chambers of commerce, our industry associations, every one of them have roles to play in AfCFTA. And we are all waking up to the immense opportunities but the immense challenges that exist. Now, even for us in government, we're now thinking, okay, we need money to build the infrastructure. Where will the money come from? It will come from taxes, from duties, somewhere. Now, the only way or the best way to be able to make sure that that comes is making sure that those policies that we put out there, those regulations and laws, make it easier for businesses to thrive. Because it's only when they thrive that they make money and then they take a part of it and give to government as tax. And we don't need to go too far backwards to see what happened. Look at what happened during the recession of 2016. Not only did we lose, did our revenue from oil drop, our tax revenue also dropped. So that gives you an indication of the complex, in fact, the ecosystem that we need to build to grow Nigeria that we want, the Nigeria of 21st century. And I will end by saying that, it's gladdening to look and see that our youth, where the older generation, people in the traditional industries are seeing.
Francis.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, you've shared a lot of insight, but I'll give you this question and you'll take it probably, maybe you can start now, we'll go on the break afterwards. You've said a lot of good things, but how can you effectively achieve all of this you said when some ministers are working cross purposes in government? A clear case is, Minister of Agriculture saying I think it was last year, that the borders will be shut permanently and the kids will be thrown into the lagoon. But all of a sudden, we're hearing another message, the borders will be open. Finally, the borders were open. One just happened this morning. We don't even know what the forex rate is in this country. The Minister of Finance is saying, the NAFEX rates are rates. The CBN is saying something else. And this has continued for so long a time. Another instance, the automotive industry you talked about. A couple of years ago, they said, they were going to increase tariffs to be able to help the local sector. Now they've reduced those same tariffs. So how do we make sense of all of this? There are lots of double speak here and there. You answer this when we come back from the commercial break. We're right back right here on the Rise News channel. And we're still talking to Francis Anatogu, Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on Public Sector Matters and the Secretary, National Committee on Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And we've been talking about myriads of issues regards this. So I said, how is everything you've said possible when there's a lot of double speak? We don't even know policy direction, as it were, today on Forex, for instance. We don't even know the automotive sector. So how can you trade without information?
Okay, so I think the way to answer that is that everything we are doing is dynamic. And let's take the example that you gave, the Minister of Agriculture talking about border closure about a year ago. The truth is that the border closure happened for a number of reasons, including non-compliance to trade rules, non-compliance to an agreement between countries, and that was one of the issues we had with our neighbors. So even with AfCFTA, compliance by countries is critical, because there are some risks that, if you don't comply, will manifest, and they will manifest in the form of smuggling, in the form of goods from outside Africa coming into Africa, and for us with a big market like Nigeria coming into Nigeria. And not only will they hurt our industries, they will also hurt our revenues from duties that would have applied if they came directly to Nigeria. If you look at that statement from the point of view of the Agri Minister, and the fact that it helped catalyze the growth of rice production in Nigeria, that's merit in what he said. But again, if you look at it, if you look at the optics of it, so okay, you're getting into an African, a Pan-African trade agreement, and you're shutting borders. Okay, yeah. So in leadership, at some point, you look at the optics and you look at the content, and you make a decision. And in that case, he made a decision, and Nigeria made a decision, and rightly so. And we got to where we got to. We sent our message, and the message also is that we will not hesitate to take whatever action we need to take as a country to protect ourselves. So, and even as we're getting into AfCFTA, we are calling on everybody to obey the rules and make sure that we all move in sync. This is going to be a very difficult agreement to implement. It will take years to implement. There will be problems along the way. We need to build trust amongst ourselves, and it won't happen on day one. I mean, for instance, you talk about last year, the issues that we had at Nigerian traders in Ghana, for instance, the issues of xenophobia in South Africa. All these things come up, but they will be resolved. There were other ones that will come up in future, but they will be resolved. It does not take away the objectives, the opportunities that AfCFTA brings. Coming back home and talking about what you say, double speak. So coordination is an area of improvement for everyone. Coordination between MDAs, coordination between the private sector and the public sector, and all of that. Coordination between the federal and the state governments. And what I'll say is that we are where we are. What I do know is that there are efforts being made by everybody to improve coordination, to improve planning, joint planning, and so on. And we can only get better at it. And as we move towards export-oriented growth, as we move towards non-oil growth, where everything affects everything and the impacts are clear, people will have no choice but to collaborate, to coordinate better. And we just have to keep faith, we just have to keep moving.
Well, very quickly, Francis, one major concern with regard to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which Nigeria has signed up to, is how do we protect Nigerian businesses, particularly medium and small-scale enterprises, in the face of this opening up that AfCFTA represents? And then, do we have the skill set? Do we have the capacity? Are we actually ready? Those are the big questions, in my view.
Okay. So, the thing is, the question should be, how do we equip our people to go out there and face the competition? Because that is the sustainable approach. And like I said earlier, even as we are speaking, individuals are already taking advantage, taking the bold steps, moving into Africa. And they do things that, when you think about it, you say, oh, that's easy. For instance, last week I was at the meeting with the DG WTO, and we have some women entrepreneurs. And one of the examples that we had was a woman that was exporting pap, ogi. Now, that is so simple, and that won't come to mind. But, think about it. She mentioned that apart from exporting the normal ogi, she exports flavored ogi, vanilla flavored ogi, strawberry flavored ogi, and all of that. These are some of the things that people are already doing. So even as we are talking, people are moving. Now, if you move beyond that, you say we cannot be competitive on every single sector, every single product. So we need to focus on areas where we have competitive advantage, and we build an ecosystem around it. So really, our approach is those areas that we have competitive advantage, we grow the value chain. So if you take cocoa, for instance, we continue to export cocoa in its raw form, but we also start building, exporting chocolates, exporting other derivatives of cocoa. And if you think about it, or from what we know today, we can target to export $300 million of cocoa per annum, and that is a huge stretch target. Or we can focus on a market of over $3 billion of same cocoa, but looking at the value chain. And how are we going about preparing our businesses? Now, the Nigerian Export Promotion Council is doing a whole lot in this area. They have so many training programs. There are so many capacity development programs. There are so many. They take businesses to trade fairs overseas, and our businesses win awards. So I think it's if there's one thing to take away from this is visit the site of Nigerian Export Promotion Council, find out, and they are everywhere. They are in all the 36 states of Nigeria. Get in touch, find out what programs they have in your state, and try to key in. That is just one agency of government. Nigerian Investment Promotion Council is also there. There's a lot they are also doing. The Small Medium Enterprise Development Agency is there. They are doing a lot. If you go down to state levels, almost every state now have an investment agency. They are doing a lot in terms of trying to attract investment. They are doing a lot in trying to develop the capacity of the people at the states. Now, the third thing to talk about is our people. We have a population of now, say, 200 million people. So really, our approach is to develop our people and export them to Africa. Because we can, because they can. In fact, as I'm speaking to you in the oil and gas sector, Africa, yes, we've been dominating that sector for a long time.
Well, Francis.
Okay.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the morning show. Thank you very much.